Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michelina Friss. I am here for this episode of the Redhawks Coaches Corner Show. I have Mr. Mark Saladzius with me. He is the head coach for the program. Mark, thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. Great to be here.
So I'm just going to jump right into it. So we're talking about the program, of course. A couple weeks ago, you guys just finished your 2018-2019 season.
Mm-hmm.
You finished it with a second-place finish out at the NCCAAs out in Indiana. That's the conclusion of the season. But before we even get into that, I think we just need to rewind a little bit and figure out how you got to that point. So just a little bit of information about you. I know that you're a native here of Rochester. You're from right here in Greece. You used to be a Redhawks player yourself when you were a student, and you're also an assistant coach for 9 years. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, like shed some light on those like significant milestones in your life, and just a little bit about yourself and how you came to be here at the current position?
Well, yeah, like you said, I was a member of the Redhawks. Back then it was Raiders program. I graduated in 2009. And so I played here for 4 years. And then after I stepped right into a assistant coach role under the head coach back then, Coach McCoy, who previously was coaching for a year or two before that. And then finished up this past fall. He retired, and I kind of took over as the interim before becoming the head coach for the men's team. And just overall, basketball has been my passion. It's been a big part of my life. It's been what I've seen as the vehicle for kind of figuring things out in life for myself and a lot of people around me. And so it's just been a great experience using what I've learned on the court to kind of help me prepare for this moment to be a coach of these young men that come into our program.
Gotcha. Very nicely said. So you've already kind of hit on it a little bit. At the beginning of the season, or before the season, the previous head coach, Rob McCoy, he announced that he was stepping down after, I believe it was 15 or 16 seasons of being the head coach. He was the winningest coach in the program's history, so that leaves a huge hole to be filled, and it's big shoes to step into. You were, after that, you were named as the interim head coach in October, I believe. So you had that position. They were figuring out what they were going to do. And then in February, you were named the permanent head coach. So that's like a really big deal. So what was that like for you to make that transition from going from being the assistant coach to being the head coach? Because I know, obviously, just like you already said, you were a player, you were an assistant coach, so you know the game. But the head coach, it just seems like it takes on so much more responsibility. When there's, bad calls by the refs, the players are struggling, anything, all eyes kind of turn to you. What was that transition like, going from assistant coach to head coach?
Well, first off, it was a blessing to have the opportunity to become the head coach. I think overall, when you make that transition, you really just got to make sure that you know what your standards are, what your fundamentals are that you're looking for out of the team and out of your coaching staff and out of yourself. And I think you just kind of maintain those standards. You make sure that you're doing things appropriately to live up to those standards, and then pretty much the wins and losses, they'll take care of themselves with that. You got to go with your gut, you got to go with what you believe, and you got to be willing to take risks. And when you're assistant coach, you're more a suggestion maker, and every suggestion that you make works in your head, even if you put it into action or not. And so when you're a head coach, you're no longer making suggestions, you're making the decisions. And so once you make those decisions, you kind of have to live with the result, good or bad.
Right.
And I think it's very important as the head coach, the leader of the young gentlemen or ladies that are on your team, depending on who you're coaching, you got to make sure that you deflect any praise over to them when things are good, and you got to take all the criticism when things are bad, making sure that they're the ones that are okay, they're the ones that are staying even-keeled, and you're just kind of accepting the responsibility for decisions being made throughout the course of the season. Nice,
very nicely said. It sounds like you were really ready to step into that role, as in you knew the mentality that you wanted to have going into it. Did you feel like, you were like, okay, I have the experience, I was, basically that you were ready to step into that role?
Yeah, Coach McCoy did a great job over my 9 years as assistant of letting me take on new challenges and take on more roles within the program and the staff. And he kind of helped me prepare, knowing that this was going to be my ultimate goal, to be a head coach. And so that was great as far as just being able to kind of go through some of those things, year by year, changing up the role a little bit so that I get the experiences, making sure that once the time come, I had at least a little experience in all kind of the different avenues of being a head coach.
So you had a really good mentor.
Oh, for sure.
In
for
Rob
sure.
McCoy.
Yeah, he's one of his best attributes is being a people person, just treating them the right way, making sure that they're okay first and foremost before himself. And that really goes a long way. I think in this kind of profession that you're doing, it's got to be people first. It can't be about you. It can't be about what's going on in your life. It has to be about your team and the things going around that and surrounding the program. And so I really learned a lot in that regard from him.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I really like about doing, probably my favorite thing that I like about doing these Coaches Corner shows is that you get to hear things like that. You get to hear about what's going on beyond like just the games, and what's going on beyond just like the stats, and kind of what makes the program that it is. And so that's really cool to hear, because I know what it's like to be, you have a certain goal that you want to reach. And I always say nobody gets, has any kind of success by themselves. There's always certain people along the way that help them get there. So that's really cool to hear that you had that in Rob McCoy. But I want to transition now and talk about some specifics about the season. So you finished the regular season 14-13, so you're over 500, so decent season. You guys in the preseason poll, you were ranked to finish 6th, or picked, I should say, to finish 6th. And then you finished 5th in the season, so obviously you went to the playoffs. Unfortunately, you lost in the first round to Bridgeport, the Purple Knights, 92-82. But the season didn't end there. You went ahead and you did the NCCAAs in Indiana. In the program's history, the team has never won a title, and you guys found yourself in the championship game playing against Cedarville out of Ohio. I remember watching the game up in the Roost for the first 10-ish minutes of the first half. It was looking pretty good. I think at one point you guys were up about 20-2, and we were like, wow, like this is looking good. And then all of a sudden they began to fight back. You guys, of course, as you know, you dropped the game 64-58. And I remember sitting there watching that, and I was like, this is kind of one of those glass half empty, half full kind of things. Like, there's probably a lot of mixed emotions. Like, on one hand, you can say, we made it to the championship game, we had a good season, go on with that. But at the same time, it's like, we were right there. So what was that like for you, again, as the head coach, knowing that's the end of your season, you're graduating a lot of seniors? What was going on in your head when the end of the game sounded?
Well, I think first and foremost, I was proud of the guys on our team. I was proud of the effort that they put in. For the most part, I was proud of the decisions. I think we put ourselves in a position to win. I had a few chances at that throughout the game. We had a great lead. We played to our standard. We took some good shots, just didn't fall. And sometimes that happens. And I think when that happens, you really can't be mad at the result as long as you know you've put forth the effort and you've made mostly right decisions. Once it happened, you kind of let all those emotions rush through you. I'm not big on getting up too high or too low, no matter on how big the game is. And I think, that one stings a little bit. It stings for guys in the offseason. It'll sting for myself and the coaching staff, knowing that you had the opportunity and you kind of let it slip away in the end. But in the end, I don't think that you want to look back and say, like, okay, this season was a success or failure based on whether or not you win your final game and you have a championship banner. I think you got to look at how the guys progressed, how you kind of raised up to your potential, the growth that occurred throughout the year. And you'll kind of see the results of that just in the young men as the years go by. Because at the end of the day, the numbers on the scoreboard aren't what matters the most. And I think that overall we'll be upset a little bit for some time about losing an opportunity and not getting the banner. But I think once we look back on it, we'll know the times that we had together as a team, the memories that we built up, and rest on that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that the players will remember, that will go beyond just that one game, like you just said. So so you are graduating a lot of seniors this year. You have a core of your team moving on. You have Michael Bush, you have Peyton McLaurin, you have Jean Toussaint. Who else we got? Who am I missing?
Justin Vaughn.
You have Justin Vaughn and Pleasant Foy. So a lot of those guys, those are like your starters right there. That's the core of your team. So tell me if I'm incorrect. You have a lot of work going on in the offseason as far as recruiting. So what are you, like when you go out and you tell people about the Redhawks men's basketball program, what are you telling them about it? You're like, if you come here and you play basketball here, this is what it's going to look like. This is what we try to instill in you. These are the opportunities that you're going to have. How do you present that to potential recruits?
I think the selling point for a basketball player individually is the opportunity to play right away. And I tell that to all the guys coming back, and I tell it to all the recruits that we're bringing in. You have the chance to play between 0 and 40 minutes every game, and who determines that is really up to you. You got to make sure that you're showing the guys on the team and you're playing within the team and yourself to carve out a role. And what that role is going to be determined on the work you put in and the efforts that you go with. And I think that sells it individually. I think as a a program. We're trying to just let people know that if you come to our Roberts program, that we're going to work to make sure that you're the best person that you could be, the best student that you can be, and that the best player overall that you can be. And if we're not reaching those three things, then this isn't the program for you. You know, if you don't feel like we can bring that out of you, then the Redhawks program might not be for you. But I think we do a great job of doing that. I think we try to build everything first and foremost off character, and then we use energy and effort throughout everything that we do to maintain our standards with it. And once you get that as the foundation, which I think we've built up over these last couple years, you know, the success is just going to take care of itself.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate the fact that you said, this is what we're all about. If you don't think that, those don't kind of align with your values, our program might not be for you. I think there will be a lot of people that will appreciate the fact that you're not trying to make your program out to be, something that it's not, basically, and a lot better that it is. And I think because of that, you'll get a lot of people that, just a lot of quality people. So yeah. I think that was a really good point that you brought up. But it's tradition here in the Coach's Corner shows that I end with a couple trivia questions about the season, and then we can let you go.
Okay.
2 questions, that's it. It's going to be really, really easy. We'll see how well you know your team. Okay? So first question. This is all for regular season, nothing to do with the NCCAAs. Okay? Who ended the season with the highest points per game average?
Peyton McLaurin, and then it was Isaiah Lewis, then Justin Vaughn. I think the top 3.
Okay. Peyton was the top. You are correct on that. Do you know what his average was?
It was a little over 14. It might have been 14.5. It might have been a little lower if we're going just on the end of the regular season.
It's 14.2. So I'll give it to you. Pretty close. Who ended the season with the highest rebounds per game?
Peyton.
And how many did he have?
I want to say he was around 6.8 or something like that.
It actually was 6.8. It was Peyton. Okay. Who ended the season with the most assists per game?
It was Peyton.
I see a pattern here.
Yeah.
How many assists per game did he have?
It's probably around 3.4 or something like that.
He had 3, so you're pretty close. I'll give it to you. That's pretty good. I think you know your players. Okay. On January 27th, you guys had a huge upset against the St. Thomas Aquinas Spartans, 71-65. I'm sure that was really exciting, a really cool moment of the season. Okay. Your field goal percentage for the day, was it A, below 35, B, above 35 but below 40, or C, 40 or above?
Probably C, 40 or above.
Final answer?
Sure.
Okay. It was actually B. It was above 35 but below 40. It was about 36%. Not too shabby, though. You're pretty close. Hey, give me pound it. That's the end of this Coach's Corner show. Stay tuned for the next one.